You know that feeling, right? You're learning a new language, you can read it, maybe you can even write a little bit, but the second you try to speak, your brain just freezes. Your tongue feels like it's tied in knots. It's this super common, super frustrating struggle. But why? Why does that happen? Well, today, we're going to dive into the science of what's really going on in your head.
So why is it so incredibly hard? I mean, for a lot of us, speaking is by far the toughest of the 4 language skills to master. And when you dig into the research, it really boils down to 2 big things. 1, the sheer pressure of having to perform in real time. And 2, the fact that you absolutely cannot go back and edit what just came out of your mouth.
And this right here, this illustrates the core of the problem perfectly. Just think about it. When you're writing, it's visual. It's permanent. You have all the time in the world to plan, to edit, to re-edit. You've got a backspace key, right? But speaking, whoa, it's a whole different ballgame. It's auditory, it's gone the second you say it, and it's happening right now. The person you're talking to, they're right there waiting for you to say something. There is no backspace key in a conversation. None.
Okay, so what's super interesting is how we've tried to teach this incredibly difficult skill. Our whole approach has done a complete 180 over the years. See, for a long time, the way we taught speaking was, well, it was based on an idea that was just fundamentally wrong.
Listen and repeat. I am going to the library. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I bet it does. That's a perfect example of the old school way of doing things. Teachers would just drill these perfectly grammatical but completely unnatural sentences into our heads over and over and over again.
This whole approach was called the audiolingual method, and it came from the school of thought called behaviorism, which basically believed that language wasn't some creative, messy thing. No, it was just a set of habits. The whole idea was to drill these good habits into you. And teachers were absolutely terrified of students making a mistake because they thought even one little error could become a bad habit that would stick with you forever.
But then, sometime in the late 20th century, researchers had this huge aha moment. They realized we had it all completely backwards. It turns out people don't learn a language by memorizing all the little pieces, the grammar rules, the vocabulary lists, and then one day magically assemble them into a conversation. That's just not how it works.
The reality is actually the exact opposite. The modern approach is called communicative language teaching, and here's the absolute game changer. We learn all those little pieces, the grammar, the words, because we are trying to interact and communicate with other people. You see the flip? Communication isn't the final destination. It's the engine that drives the whole learning process.
Okay, so if speaking isn't just reciting lines you've memorized, then what is it? I mean, what is actually happening in your brain when you try to talk? Well, to really get a handle on the sheer complexity of it, we need a kind of map. And that's where the speaking pyramid comes in.
And here it is. Whoa. Okay, I know, that looks incredibly complex. Because, honestly, it is. But don't worry about reading every single little label on there. Here's the big takeaway. Speaking is not one single skill. It's this entire stack of different skills, all layered on top of each other. And they all have to fire off perfectly together in a fraction of a second. So let's break down a few of the most important layers, shall we?
So let's start at the very bottom, the foundation of the whole pyramid. This is called the utterance. Now, an utterance is just, well, it's something someone says. That's it. It doesn't have to be some grammatically perfect sentence. If your friend asks, hey, what do you want for dinner? And you just reply, pizza? Guess what? That's an utterance. It's how real people actually talk.
Okay, moving up a layer, we get to the building blocks, morphemes. And the best way to think about these is like Lego bricks. Seriously, some morphemes are free. They're like a standard Lego brick. A word like hat or run. It means something all by itself. Then you have bound morphemes. These are like the little specialty pieces, you know? Things like the prefix un or the suffix ed. They have to attach to another brick to make any sense.
Now we're getting closer to the top. We've got the phonemes. These are the individual tiny little sounds of a language. Think about the difference between the words pit and bit. The only thing that separates them is that tiny little puff of air for the P sound. That little puff of air, that's a phoneme. And getting those tiny sounds right is the difference between asking for a pin or a bin.
But this next layer is where it gets really cool. This is kind of the secret weapon of speaking. It's called suprasegmentals, which is just a fancy word for things like stress and intonation. Now look at this. The words on the screen are exactly the same, but just listen to how I say them and notice how the meaning completely changes. Ready? I think I know. I think I know. I think I know. I think I know. See that? Same words, 4 totally different meanings. And this is exactly why that old drill and repeat method was so flawed. It only ever focused on the words and the sounds, but it completely missed this huge, crucial layer of meaning that comes from how we say things.
Okay, so we've spent some time deconstructing why this is all so difficult. We've looked at the pyramid. Now for the really important part. How do we actually get better at this? How do we climb that pyramid? Well, the research points to 5 key principles that really work.
All right, first up, know your context. I mean, practicing in a classroom versus being totally immersed in a country where they speak the language, 2 completely different things. Second, you gotta balance fluency and accuracy. Sometimes you just need to talk, make mistakes, and get your point across. Other times, you need to slow down and really focus on getting it right. Third, and this is a simple one, increase your talk time. You can't get better at speaking without, actually speaking. Fourth, and this one is so important, practice negotiating for meaning. You have to get comfortable saying things like, wait, what was that? Or can you say that again? Because those little moments of clarification, that's where the magic happens, that's real learning. And finally, practice real-world scenarios, everything from just casual chit-chat to specific tasks like trying to order a coffee.
Okay, so those are the 5 big principles. But how do you actually put them into practice? Let's look at a few proven classroom techniques that take all this theory and turn it into actual, real-life talking.
So this is where it gets fun and really practical. You've got things like role plays, right? Where you pretend to be a tourist who lost their wallet. But the most powerful techniques are the ones that create a genuine need for you to communicate. Take something called an information gap. Your partner has a piece of information that you need to solve a puzzle. There's no other way to get it. The only way to win is to talk. And what I love about these activities is that you forget you're practicing. You're just using the language to solve a real problem, which is the whole point.
And all of this brings us to one last really crucial thought. We've spent all this time breaking down the speaking pyramid that's happening inside one person's brain. But a real conversation, that's 2 of these pyramids trying to connect with each other in real time. It's this incredible dance of understanding and negotiation and context. So the next time you're struggling, the next time your tongue feels tied, just remember, you're not just trying to recite words correctly, you're trying to build a bridge from your mind to someone else's. And that, well, that's a whole other kind of science.